Well, good evening and welcome to another edition of County Conversations. As always, I'm your host, Trevor Lewington. Thanks so much for joining us. Typically on the fourth Thursday of the month, we're going to introduce you to the people that power Lethbridge County. These are the folks behind the scenes that are taking care of your roads or processing maybe your tax assessment. I know that's not a popular thing to hear, but there's an awful lot of people in the organization that it takes to keep the organization going. So we're going to introduce them to you. This month we had to cheat a little bit. Kelsey was kind enough to adjust schedule, a little bit of a conflict with Thursday this week. So here we are on the fourth Tuesday instead. Welcome to the show and thanks for making some time to be with me.
Thanks for inviting me.
So Kelsey Janzen is our coordinator of communications and marketing at Lethbridge County. We're going to get into exactly what that is, but appreciate you making some time to share your story. I've had the pleasure of working with you for the last few months since I'm relatively new, but can you maybe talk about, where you came from and your journey? Like, how did you end up at Lethbridge County? What did that career trajectory kind of look like for you?
It was definitely a windy path.
Okay.
As I was reflecting on that earlier, I was thinking about, despite my mom's training to make me into a planner, I feel like my career has been more of a following my instincts, my faith, my values, and purpose. And that has kind of taken me all over.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad thing. The sideways movement's often a good way to learn things. Okay.
Right. So I started off with a BA in Intercultural Studies, which was a little bit of a route even to get there. But as part of that, I got to do an internship in Bolivia for one school year. And that was very impactful for me. I loved that. I think it's one of the reasons that I chose to do the full degree, that I would get that kind of experience, get to spread my wings a little bit.
That must have been fairly immersive, a year in another culture, language,
Yes.
community. Okay.
Yes, definitely a lot of learning curves, a lot of feeling like a child. Even when I was working with children there, part of my role was to work in a children's home and a music program for kind of at-risk kids.
Okay.
And so, yes, there was lots of learning, which was sometimes really fun and sometimes really exhausting. But yeah, so then came back after that, and I thought, okay, I'm going to head back to Bolivia. And instead, I came back to Lethbridge.
Bolivia to Lethbridge. Okay.
Right, a little less exciting. And I ended up working at Interfaith Food Bank for 3.5 years. And there I got to, I was an executive assistant as part of it. So I learned that when you have assistant in your title, you have many experiences.
Other duties as required is the job description.
Exactly. And got to coordinate their volunteers. So I got to meet all sorts of community members, kind of hear their stories, and also be a part of contributing to better food security in our community. Before I went there, I really didn't realize how much food insecurity there was. And so it was a great learning experience for me. And not only to learn about that area, but also my boss there was so empowering. She kind of let me, when I said, what if we updated the website? She said, sure, go for it. What if I got this program so I could make different posters or other things? Sure. She gave me a lot of latitude, which kind of, whether it was her intention or not, catapulted me back to school, where I guess a lifelong passion for good design got to be formed a little bit more, curated a little bit more. I was at what is now the Polytechnic as a student in the multimedia program, and did a lot of learning there, kind of honing those design skills, which then sent me into an internship at the Polytechnic, and then I worked there for 6.5 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of jump. Those years were really great. I learned a lot about good education and I guess how to look at it as less of what am I teaching someone and how can I help someone to learn instead.
because I think we sort of in our heads when we're training or providing learning, it's like, I'm going to share every piece of knowledge I have with you, not create space for you to actually create the knowledge yourself,
Exactly.
right? Very different approach.
Yes. And so instead looking really thoughtfully at who are the learners and using that to design learning objects, we call them. So it might be like an interactive where you did a little quiz or did a matching game, stuff like that. Sometimes it was print resources. I got a chance to be kind of a people manager as well.
Okay.
And get to know a lot of different people and do a little bit of coaching and again, a little bit of everything. No assistant in the title that time, but still a lot of new experiences.
Okay. So, I mean, really interesting. You do this international experience, you come back here, work in the not-for-profit space. Again, as an assistant, you do all the things, right? And then you move over to the Polytechnic as an intern, you stay on and do sort of these broad roles. So a really interesting path. And then Lethbridge County, you joined Lethbridge County as coordinator of communication and marketing. So what exactly does that involve? Because that feels like a big bucket potentially.
Yeah, I was trying to think of pieces around that too. And I think it's easy to list items, and I'll give a little bit of a list as well. But I guess kind of how I see my role is being a bridge between what we as the county organization think is important to communicate and the people that live in Lethbridge County. And so trying to translate sometimes complex things into things that might be either more simple or just more relatable. Other times trying to balance what we as the organization thinks is important and what the people of Lethbridge County think is important.
Because those don't always align if we get it wrong, right?
Right, not every single time. And so how that kind of works itself out is in social media posts, in posters, in the Rural Living magazine, in informational postcards. I think sometimes in designing those pieces, my education background comes in a little bit in thinking, again, like not just what information are we giving, but how would people like to receive it?
Right.
What is the question they're actually asking? We did some consultations, mostly internal recently, as you know, and a lot of what we kept hearing is people just want to know why this happened, why this is coming, why this isn't happening. And so that's been, I think, at the core for our team, for me and Maddie, to think about how do we share the why, knowing that we won't always share it in depth, but how can we make it feel more transparent for people, give them a better understanding of why are we sharing this with you?
Why do I care? Why do I pay attention? Right, all those questions.
Exactly. Why is this road getting attention, but this one isn't? Or why did we upgrade the truck fill system? Like giving a little more context there and help, like, I guess, allowing people to be part of the process a little bit more in how we communicate.
Because, I mean, I do think sometimes as government, as municipalities, we forget that we don't always do a good job of saying why we picked one priority over the other. We don't, we often use a lot of jargon and maybe we don't translate what we're saying. So is that your job then, is to really figure out how to take this complex, capital priorities and how a road surfacing is deployed and translate that into a post that people go, oh, I get it. That's the funnel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're relying on your history and academic credentials to somehow pull that all together.
We do our best, yeah.
So, I mean, we're all bombarded by information all the time, and now it follows us around on, this $1,000 piece of glass that we usually have in our hands. Does social media help, or what's your take on the role of social media? Because the county uses that as a channel, but aren't we just competing for airspace sometimes?
Yes,
okay.
Sometimes, definitely. I think we're in an interesting spot as Lethbridge County because we definitely have people in the county who are using social media are happy to do things digitally or online. And we also have people that really love to get a letter, or people who want to see a poster on their community bulletin board, or get a postcard. And so the social media helps because it's an easy way for us to put things out kind of in real time, and directly in people's hands if they're following us and those kinds of things.
Right.
It can also sometimes, I guess, become the priority. And so I think Maddie and I both ask ourselves the question often, is this the only place we should put it? Where else should we put this information to help ensure that people have access to information if they're looking for it?
Okay. I mean, you got to capture people's attention. It's got to be a message that's relevant, back to the why. And then it's got to be something that actually communicates what it is I'm seeking to understand. That's a lot to try and boil down into a graphic image or into a paragraph or a line. Like I'm always amazed at what you come back with in terms of how we communicate those things.
It's definitely a bit of, I guess it can be fun to think about, okay, how could we put this out there? Of course, some of the drafts don't make it to real life. But yeah, really trying to get in the head of someone who's not us and try and think, if I didn't really care about this, if I started from that place, what might make me at least give it a second look?
So I mean, I've heard you talk a lot about this idea of human-centered design in everything that you do. Is that sort of the heart of it, is getting inside the user's head to, okay, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you do that and what that looks like?
Totally. This, again, I learned a lot about during my time at the Polytechnic. We did a lot of kind of human-centered course design, and I think it really applies to communications too, where the goal is to understand who are the humans, the group of people, the community that you're trying to connect with, that you want this to be meaningful for. And so, okay, now you've identified who they are. Now get to know them a little bit more. Think about, how do they like to get their information? What are the things that are most important to them? How do they operate? How do they spend their day? And kind of use those things to inform how we might write something, where we're going to put it, the imagery that we'll use, all of those kinds of things.
Like I know I personally process information very much by reading. I like to read instruction manuals. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm a detailed, introverted, that's how I receive information. But sometimes people are visual learners or auditory learners. And so I guess you have to try and accommodate all of those different styles and approaches, right?
We're definitely trying. I would say like the auditory one, we haven't found the right niche for us yet a lot. But this is maybe a step in that direction, right? But yeah, definitely thinking about those who like to read a lot, like you, and those who
don't
have time for one sentence, right?
Right.
And if we can grab them in that sentence, maybe we can communicate enough that they'll at least think about it. They might ask questions about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other barriers? I mean, it's about being timely, it's about being relevant, but you must have a long list of things various departments want you to communicate, but you can only post so many times without irritating people, I would imagine. Like you have to be a bit selective, right?
It's true. Even today, we had a conversation. We've had a few kind of special announcements, like our Growing Opportunities workshop and the launch of Rocket Doctor. And so we sent out a couple of county insiders already this week, and tomorrow was supposed to be the regularly scheduled one. So we discussed it and we decided, you know what, we're going to push that to next week.
Because you've already had 2 electronic communications from me so far this week, maybe a third. Okay, so you do that, is just adjust the schedule.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we like to consider that, knowing, we're people who are also subscribed to things and realize how much we read or don't read, or what thresholds kind of push us over the edge as to what we'd like to receive. So we try to be mindful of that and kind of stagger things as we can. There will be times, when there's a number of really important things that we need to get out, and we just hope it doesn't get lost. Other times, if we know even that some other organization around us is putting out some important information, we might wait on something knowing that people's attention is going to be on that.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a juggling act sometimes. Have it ready, but reschedule when we need to. And
okay. And I mean, the other thing I think you and Maddie both do a masterful job of is keeping, and I hate to use this word because everybody uses it, but a consistent brand. But there is a visual identity for the county. There's a certain tone. There's a voice that we like to use. Even the graphic elements are, there's a consistency there. So how do you take everything from this road is being resurfaced to there's a fire ban to we're launching Rocket Doctor and give that some consistency? I mean, those are very different wild messages potentially being delivered on different platforms. How do you create this brand voice or this consistency, I guess?
So that part is planned. I like to think of visual design as kind of puzzle pieces.
Okay.
So as long as I'm using the same pieces, I can rearrange them. So I guess it's not an exact puzzle, maybe they're blocks. But so as long as I know I'm going to use this font, I'm going to pull from this color palette, this is the type of photography I would use. I'll create for myself, standard sizes of text, different things like that. The tone, I think, is a big piece, and that had been worked on before I came with a consultancy to look at, like, what does the county sound like? What is the vibe we want to put out there?
Right.
How do we want people to relate to us? And I think we've kind of settled on, we'd like it to be conversational and neighborly. Obviously, in some cases, we have to be a bit authoritative as well.
We're still government.
Right. But also to be a little bit like, we're part of the community and we want to lift up the community and, I guess, democratize information as well to the community.
When you say democratize information, what does that mean to you?
To me, part of that is, I guess, related to access.
Okay.
Sometimes there's things, or at least the perception that things aren't being shared, right? And so as much as we can, we want to make sure people have access to the information that they need when they need it, and that it's not because they hunted through all the pages of our website, but that it was in a place that made sense. Some of the things that we've worked with departments on, particularly in planning and development, actually, where we kind of realized, even just for the development permit process, internally, a lot of people were fuzzy on how that worked, and also a lot of community members. And so one of the resources we designed turned it into a 5-step process and says, like, this is what you can expect when you're doing that. And we, I think, really realized that setting the expectations changes how people receive the message, right? If you've set a certain expectation, that's kind of the benchmark that people are using. But if you don't set an expectation, then it's kind of whatever expectation you got, whether it's through another conversation, an experience you had, whatever. But if we can set that expectation, then it changes. Instead of the feeling being the county just drags their feet when I ask for a development permit, in this resource we outlined, actually there's a mandated period of 21 days that we have to leave them open in case neighbors have concerns or that kind of thing. So taking the time to write that out to show people that that's part of the process, I think helps in acknowledging, like, okay, this isn't people being lazy or willfully difficult. It's just part of a process that involves multiple players. And so now that I know to expect that, that's what I'll expect instead of something else.
But, and again, it's also filling that information vacuum, because if you don't tell me what the process is, I'm going to insert random facts that I think are true into that,
Yes.
right? And I think it's a great lesson too, that if an organization isn't clear in its own processes, it's unlikely other people around you, including your customers, are going to be clear.
Right.
So starting there, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's been really fun. That's been a definite, I think, joy for me in this role, is getting to work with different departments and kind of problem solving with them to figure out, is there something that we can leverage in a different way, that we can explain a little more clearly, or just make sure that people know about, or yeah, that's been really fun.
Well, I mean, I've been to that point. I've been very impressed with the Deep Roots Bright Future video series, which was sort of done over the last year, profiling county businesses and their success. How did that come together, and what have you noticed about that campaign?
I was fortunate to jump into it as it was
evolving. Okay.
So it's infancy. I don't know the exact origins there, but I think a big piece of it is we want to tell the story of the county. We want to lift up the amazing things that are happening and show people that, I mean, we're proud to be the county. Absolutely. And we hope that the people who live in the county, the people who have businesses in the county, can also be proud of that. And this is one way that we can kind of offer a helping hand to say, we'll help you tell the world what you're doing and why it's cool.
Okay. I mean, we were just looking at some of the stats, and there's been thousands and thousands of views on many of those individual videos. And I was floored that the single largest user group of our YouTube channel is the 65 plus crowd. And I don't know, if, maybe I'm biased. I just would never have put that together. So to me, it was an interesting example of finding very different ways to communicate information, to your point around being what's relevant and meaningful to you, to that crowd. It's the video imagery and the stories behind these businesses, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's been a very fun project. I think, just like the title suggests, there are deep, rich roots of family heritage, business, farming, all these things, but there's also a really bright future. There's so many cool things happening, more that I'm sure are in process right now. And I think we also thought that you can value both of those at the same time. You don't have to just honor the past, and you also don't have to throw it away because there's new.
Right.
You can hold them both at the same time and say both are valuable, both make us who we are as an organization, as a community. And so celebrating that is another fun part of the job.
It is, though, right? Like there are many municipalities that are all about either status quo or fighting growth or fighting the future. And the county, I think, has really struck an interesting balance where it's, no, we respect and honor the past and we celebrate that, but it's also about the future, and those two things go together. They're not in conflict, right? I think it's been really interesting to me. Okay. I want to, we get a lot of students that watch listen to Jess FM and watch Jess TV. So I'm curious, given your windy road to success in your career so far, what advice would you give to folks that are studying communications or marketing, or, either at the Polytechnic or at the university? What's sort of your career advice to those students starting out?
I guess to be open, to know that if you're not sure what your path looks like, that's the case for most other people, right? We often get the message that, oh, you need to have a plan, you need to, figure out where you're going and just shoot for that, keep shooting for that. And I think having goals is good. But also, if your trajectory changes a little, that's okay.
Yeah. And
it can be really good. I think for me, 18-year-old me would not have guessed that I would work in municipal government ever.
That was probably never on the radar, right?
No, not at all. And but you never know where you'll go. And so, I mean, if you can kind of trust your intuition, if you have a person that you trust, if, ask those questions, kind of figure out what sits right for you. And I mean, so far, even though there's been, different struggles and challenges, I don't think I would change anything. Like, the challenging parts made current day better and showed me different options. I mean, I was definitely the kid who had print shop deluxe, and made the cards and the banners and everything. But I never really thought of communications and design as an actual job until later, when I'd already had a bit of a career, right?
Yeah.
And so, know what you're interested in and what your kind of non-negotiables are. But then, I mean, switching from, I guess, designing learning resources to doing communications for the government, it's not a natural progression per se, but there's a lot of transferable skills.
There's still a lot of designing and communication elements that are the same between both, I would imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess, to me, it's about building skills, knowing what your skills are and which ones you want to improve, and then being able to translate those into whatever role you become interested in or you find yourself in. Because, how you showcase those things changes, I guess, what doors might open for you.
No, very good advice. I mean, I think about my own career between retail to manufacturing to government to now more government. Like, I would never have put that on the bingo card if you'd asked me in university. Like, that was never a thing. I mean, as you look back on your career, is there a project that stands out that you go, oh, that I'm so proud of that. This is my golden trophy moment, or has it been just a long series of things that you go, this was cool?
Probably more like the second one. There's a few kind of pieces where I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I took on that challenge. I think some of the engagement related projects that I worked on both at the county and a little bit in my role at the Polytechnic, I find humans to be fascinating, and so I really enjoy, I guess, trying to understand more like why people think the way they do and what matters to them, and how I can translate that into, in this case, usually good communication, with kind of my ultimate goal being to build the community. I think that's a big underlying value for me. And so when I get a chance to build community through a project, that excites me. So working on the core values project for the county, that was exciting because I also got to learn what was important to other people in the organization, and see where we aligned on a lot of things, and also help support the idea that having strong values is a good thing. And that's how we can collaborate better, how we can have more unity as an organization, and find more purpose together as well.
Sort of a foundational element to all agree on the same core values, and to be like, to your point, I guess, helping build those and define them and then share them is like, that really is a foundational element to the whole organization and how it does business. Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about finding humans fascinating. And so is that partly what fuels your desire for international travel? I know you've done a fair bit. Is like, where does that play in, and why were you a traveler? Is it part of that fascination?
Definitely part of it. I have one aunt who always was traveling when we were kids, and she would tell us about her trips. She would bring us cool things, and, we got to learn about people that had different perspectives than us, places that looked different, had different foods, all those kinds of things. I think I had a fair number of people around me that kind of introduced me to things. And so I got hooked a little bit. And the major that I chose, intercultural studies, that sort of implies tells you a little something too. But in all of my travels, it's been very interesting to see, this is a different way of doing this, or this is something that people really value. I've done a little bit of language learning too, and I love how that reveals things about how people operate, how they think. Some languages are more direct on like, Trevor did this. And sometimes it's a little more like, oh, this happened, is how you were. And Trevor might have been around. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes. And same instance, but it kind of, I guess, has increased my awareness of the fact that there are different perspectives. There's different ways of looking at things. And like, who's to say which one is better or worse, right? But we can learn something from each one, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's been very cool for me.
Now I'm going to put Bolivia aside because, that's an unfair comparison because you were there for a year. Is there a favorite destination or a favorite place you've been so far, or is it just so many to choose from?
Both and.
Okay.
My most recent trip a couple years ago to Japan and South Korea has kind of stuck with me.
Okay.
For some reason, that was one of the first trips where I was like, I would love to go back. Like, I've loved all the places I've been, but that was the first time where before I even left, I was like, oh, I could come back here. So.
Okay, that's a pretty strong endorsement.
Right. Yes. And previously, to be honest, Japan was not on my list at all. A friend wanted to go and invited me along, and I think that's again one of those where maybe it wasn't in the plan, but it turned out to be an awesome experience. I learned a lot, unforgettable memories, and I guess kind of fueled the fire for more travel.
For more, okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that travel has influenced your work?
I think so. I think part of that, which is really strongly tied maybe to the idea of human-centered design, is just that idea of, I might look at this in a certain way, but like, what other ways might people look at this? Right? Like, what other message might they see? How might something that I think is, light and just like maybe a little funny look offensive and heavy to someone else, or that kind of thing. And so just being aware that it's worth taking the time to really stand back, look at it, get some other opinions. Those who know me around the office know I do a lot of informal polling.
Hallway consultations, yeah.
Exactly. To see, like this or this, or, if you hear this, what do you think? That kind of thing. I think that collaboration, that second look, additional perspective is really valuable. Not only to prevent, things like errors or putting things out there that should not go out there, but just to kind of sharpen things, polish things. I have found as a designer that like getting good feedback, even though people who aren't designers might feel like it's a painful process, it's actually really fun. When people have specific and meaningful feedback, then you go, oh, okay, this is how this person saw this. Now I'll take that back and see what changes I might make or what clarifications I might make. I think some of the designs I've liked the most that I've created are ones that had a long back and forth, different opinions to take us from like good to something that was like really memorable.
Okay, cool. Now, I mean, you have a fairly demanding job and there's lots of competing requests and priorities. So how do you find balance for yourself? Like, how do you maintain sort of, not home life balance, but, overall well-being? Like, what do you do to sort of stay neutral and stay refreshed and energized yourself?
I would say something that I haven't always done, but I've done since I've worked at the county, has been reasonably strict with myself about the separation between work and home. And part of that is just like not working from home, really. With my last job, I did a lot of working from home. And at the outset, I thought I really liked that. And then later, I realized my kitchen had become an office.
It all starts to blur very quickly, right?
Right. And so for me, I'm generally the kind that like leaves pretty much on time every day. I work until then, and then I'm out. And part of that is I know that I don't like me when I'm overly stressed or, not having time for rest. So prioritizing that, I assume if I don't like me, then other people wouldn't as well. So prioritizing like rest, whether that means like, some downtime at home or getting together with friends or family.
Okay.
I have some friends that are involved in various, I guess, charitable endeavors, and they invite me along a lot, and so those are fun and also life-giving. I think there's something really cool about doing things for other people.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. But making intentional space for both, I guess rest, leisure, and also kind of serving in some way that's not my paid job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Because, again, I think there's been lots of discussion about this work-life balance piece, and some companies in the US conveniently call it work-life integration, and I've never been a huge fan of that because they're meant to be separate, and I think place has a lot to do with that. So it's interesting to hear your perspective on that, but also finding other ways to serve is often energizing. So yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. So as we wrap up here, any sort of thoughts on what's the big focus for you in 2026? What are you working on that's a big priority?
I mean, definitely we've got some, I guess, both internal and hopefully external engagement stuff coming up. And currently that stuff I think is pretty fun. Also, we've spent kind of the last 2 years really building a foundation on kind of the updated brand, what it looks like to have a team of 2 instead of 1. And so it feels like even in our kind of strategic conversations, we're like, what's the next level? How do we take like things that are working really well and either leveling up on them,
okay, or,
okay, these are good. Now, what's the other thing that we can look into, that we can delve into? So some of that is looking at maybe more social content with actual people from the county organization. We're working on some of that. Taking inspiration from, I guess, popular things at the level that government can do them. Maybe we're not going to be as silly as some of the other people, but bring in some of those relatable pieces. But yeah, I guess just kind of moving everything either to the next level or being open to what opportunities are coming. One of those, I guess, being the next issue of Rural Living soon.
Okay, so another Rural Living magazine is soon to be upon us.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I sincerely hope that the universe never gets to see a TikTok featuring this individual, because that's just not good for anybody. But any final thoughts you want to share with the audience, or any final impressions you want to leave with anybody that's paying attention tonight?
I guess I would encourage anyone who cares about the county, lives in the county, to look for the information if they can, to know that we are trying to communicate with them and that we are doing it on a number of channels, and hopefully, we can engage together on those channels. And if not, that they can let us know how they'd like to hear from us. I think both Maddie and I would say it's successful communication if we're reaching the people we want it to reach. And so we are happy to be adaptable and flex so that people can get the information that they're looking for. And I guess if people feel like maybe it's not out there, maybe visit our website, check out our socials, and there is quite a bit of info out there, and we will promise to keep sharing more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to that end, lethcounty.ca is the website. That's sort of the first place people can go.
Yes.
We're on Facebook.
Yes.
We're on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We're on YouTube.
Yes.
Right. So those are sort of the key channels that are out there. And Instagram.
Yes.
People can also sign up on the website for the County Insider, which is a bi-weekly e-newsletter, right?
Yes.
So to your point, there's multiple channels, multiple places. Pick one, join with us, and we'll figure out how we continue to scale and grow and be more interactive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think input from residents and businesses will tell us if we're on track or not. So the more we can connect and engage, to me, that feels like we'll get closer and closer to really good and meaningful communication.
Awesome. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for joining me tonight on County Conversations and sharing a little bit about your story and what you do to power Lethbridge County. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
And that's the episode for this month. We'll be back next month with another behind-the-scenes look at somebody else in the organization. And we'll show you a little bit of, how we're building community, how we're preparing for the future, and how we're moving Lethbridge County forward. Thanks so much for watching.